Let's do a quick test, Lauren. Unmute your mic and talk
Hey.
for 10 seconds.
Hey everyone, I'm back. Is that better?
Yeah, go ahead and mute. We'll go as planned with you.
Sorry for the scare.
My name is Ginger Kwan. I am the Executive Director of Open Doors for Multicultural Families. Our organization is focusing on serving linguistically, culturally diverse families who have loved ones with developmental and intellectual disabilities.
Hello, I'm Gordon McHenry Jr. I have the privilege of serving as President and CEO of United Way of King County, and I'm really pleased to be with all of you today. We're taping this on Monday, the 13th of April, as we're not able to be with you on Wednesday. It's a really important topic: housing, rental assistance, and racial equities and disparities. Ginger, I'd like to ask you a question. You're one of four, you lead one of four organizations that's in partnership with United Way to make sure that those who are most vulnerable in our community receive rental assistance. It's through our home-based rental assistance fund. And as you know, it's money that we raise from a variety of sources, including United Way's Community Relief Fund. And I'm really grateful for your leadership and your organization's participation, and want to ask you, how is it going? Are there aspects of getting this money to the communities that you were serving that's been challenging or surprising? And basically, is it helping?
We are able to share these resources among the other 9 organizations, including ourselves. That'll be 10 organizations are willing to work together to serve our community that are most vulnerable. And historically, these are disproportionately not being served well communities. So what we know is that through this fund, through the connections we already have with these families, because we have noticed that, and also we have learned through the work we have been doing, the families who we are serving, that they trust us. And so that's why they come to us. And that's what makes the Racial Equity Coalition's work very unique in a way, is that we know the community we serve, and our staff are the one who come from the community and speak the language. So there we already remove the language barriers, the cultural barriers. So as a result, we will be able to work with the families more closely, and people will feel more comfortable to share with us what the challenges they have facing right now, particularly. And our process will be even more faster, because if you put ourselves into the other person's shoes, you don't speak my language, I don't know who you are, then, if you want me to give you information, but I don't really trust you, so as a result, I don't really share with you the whole picture. And through this type of cultural connections that we have, because of the funding, then we can set up a system in a way that fits to the unique community's needs. Or you have somebody who don't speak the language, then they want to use the interpreter. And very often we also know interpreters might misinterpret some words because there might be some cultural differences. Then we don't really notice. And as a Chinese, I also noticed that people would say, oh, you speak Chinese, then you definitely know this. But they didn't know there are Taiwanese, there's a Cantonese, there are Toisanese, Shanghainese. And so there are many dialects are usually got buried into one language when people say Chinese, or it may be Indian as well. So those are the things that through the organization like us are able to address those issues and provide the needed support right away.
That's great. Yeah. And it's only been a couple days since we've activated the rental assistance fund. How has it been going in these first couple of days, these first 3 to 4 days?
Well, the good thing is that we have 10 organizations are all coming together. So we actually have sent out our contract within 1 or 2 days. We set up a contract with these organizations. Now we are waiting for them to get back to us. And prior to that, we already set up the system. We make sure that they know what data collections they are required, and because we want to be held accountable. So once we set up our system to collect those data, I am, foreseeing that this kind of help gonna go out pretty soon. Currently, just within Open Doors for Multicultural Families, we have more than 150 families are asking for rental assistance. But with the funding we have, we might only be able to serve 30 families probably with that dollar amount we receive. So together we are counting about 500 to hopefully we can serve 500 families, what we're hoping, because some people might not need that all of them, but we don't know. That's what I can see is it's not a problem to disseminate the money to help those supported who need support. It's more of what if we finish the funding, what are we going to do? So I think that leads to another things that we all have to continue to work with the community is sharing this information, let them know the needs are way much higher than what our resources right now can support.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ginger. Open Doors for Multicultural Families, as well as the other members of the Racial Equity Coalition. Really important work and important partners. A lot of people have asked me, how has the COVID virus affected our communities of color in terms of housing? And we knew that there was disproportionality that existed among communities of color in terms of those who were homeless, those who were suffering from housing instability, with numbers that were 4, 5, or 6 times the amount of based on the population. And we are seeing that is increasing, and we're hearing that that's increasing. We're also seeing it in the initial requests for rental assistance, and that communities of color are like 70% or more of the people who are saying they need help. So I'm not surprised by this situation. I'm concerned, very concerned that COVID-19 is going to really weigh heavily, most heavily, on our communities of color.
Yeah, and thank you for that question, how COVID-19 is impacting our communities. And what we have seen, similar to what Gordon is saying, and I want to share a little bit more, is the specific populations that we are serving. For example, people with disabilities, including my son who has disabilities, and he's an adult. Before COVID-19, he is working. But when COVID-19 hit, with his intellectual abilities, he would not be able to understand how to practice the hygiene on the much more regular, and also to practice that social distancing or other things that people will be more careful. Now you wear a mask at work or something like that. And those are things he would not be able to do. So as a result, he lost a job right now, just temporary, but that's what happened to many of the people that we are serving. For example, there are families we serve who are day laborers, and they rely on the contracted work to do on a daily basis. And now nobody's hiring them because nobody wants anybody go to their home, go to their yard to do the work. And so those are also a very typical things we see that impact the communities that usually holding the lower wage jobs, and those jobs might not be giving them the salary or the health care benefits. And these are the population who got hit the most, and also those who rely on another person to relay the message or to get message because their language is not English proficiency yet. So to me, I think housing very often is a reflection of our social economic status. And when these status is perpetuating even harder, even more during this crisis time, we definitely see the inequality, the inequitable access to the needed support and resources to this community as well.
The housing crisis that existed prior to COVID-19 and how we're seeing it right now. I would hesitate to call myself an expert in affordable housing, but it was clear from my time at Solid Ground, which was over 7 years, co-chairing, being one of the many co-chairs of the housing levy that the city of Seattle ran a couple years ago, and then serving with Sarah Levin at United Way as the co-chair of All Home, that we had serious issues when it came to the lack of affordable housing throughout the Puget Sound region, and most acutely in King County. And oftentimes we would focus a lot, and very appropriately, on those with low income, very low income, and no income. So people that are living on 30% and below area median income, people who had experienced homelessness or were homeless, or people that I call housing unstable, meaning they're a week, 2 weeks, 1 month away from being evicted because of inability to pay their rent in a high cost market. So those things existed before COVID-19. They were most prominent with our communities of color. And it's only gotten worse. It's been exacerbated greatly by COVID-19, principally because there's been this incredible loss of income, either people's hours being cut or being laid off totally. And so dependent upon unemployment, temporary assistance to needy families, SNAP or food assistance, makes it incredibly difficult to pay rent, for those who have a mortgage, to pay the mortgage. So we've just seen the stress on our housing community just skyrocket, and unfortunately fall heaviest on communities of color and those who are in those who previously experienced homelessness and were barely stable, or were not housing stable even before the crisis. Stop there.
And for me, I think what I can add some is that the actual stories that I have heard from communities that we collectively serve through the Racial Equity Coalition members. We have heard that like the youth who used to be homeless, but they don't really report it because they are couch surfing. But right now, due to COVID-19, nobody will let them go to their homes, right? That is one example of the youth who are at risk of being homeless and now really becomes homeless in that situation. Or we also have in the communities that they might have a few families or a few households actually residing in one building or in one room or in one house or in one apartment, in that kind of situation. And so now, due to COVID-19, these families, they might be co-sharing the rent together, and they all lost jobs. So suddenly, now you have a house, have many households, all of them don't have the job. And that's the kind of situation make it even harder with the food, the needs for food, the needs for other basic needs, and also the housing, the rent, or the deposit, whatever, or co-sharing, that becomes a huge issue as well. And so, besides that, then people who have disabilities, for example, the low-income seniors who are living with adults with disabilities, they actually rely on the adults who have disabilities go out to work. Now the adults lost a job, the senior caregivers also don't have the income. So there is a problem with paying the mortgage, there's problem paying the rent, food. So this is really compounded together. That's why people who are, already facing housing crisis before the COVID-19, now they really don't have other resources but to get help from the communities. And thank you very much for taking the time with us today. And I appreciate this opportunities to share our perspective from the Racial Equity Coalition and also individually from myself. I really appreciate it, have this opportunity to share with you my perspective. As an immigrant myself, come to this country, working in the past 20 plus years, serving people who have developmental and intellectual disabilities, come from the very linguistically, culturally diverse communities. We know that very often during the critical time, we need to not only think about ourselves, but also expand our ability, give our blessings to other people. And we know during this time, particularly, those who are underserved will continue to be underserved even more. And I would like to encourage everyone and to think about